disrespected at a five-star restaurant for being too young. The Michelin inspector's identity shocks everyone. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Le Chateau Noir, one of Manhattan's most exclusive five-star restaurants. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables dressed in crisp white linens, where the city's elite savored meals that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Maya Chen stood outside the restaurant's imposing entrance, her black wool coat soaked through. At 26 years old, she looked even younger with her delicate features, minimal makeup, and the rain plastering her dark hair against her face. She clutched a small leather notebook close to her chest, protecting it from the downpour. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the heavy brass doors. The warmth inside hit her immediately, along with the hushed murmur of refined conversation and the subtle clink of expensive silverware on fine china. The scent of truffle and seared duck filled the air. Maya's eyes adjusted to the golden light as she approached the host's stand, where a tall man in an impeccable black suit stood like a guardian at the gates of paradise. "Good evening," Maya said politely, water dripping from her coat onto the marble floor. "I have a reservation under Chen, 7:30. The maître d', whose name tag read Bernard, looked up from his leather-bound reservation book. His eyes traveled from Maya's wet hair down to her simple black dress and back up again, his expression shifting from professional courtesy to barely concealed disdain. "Chen," he repeated slowly, running a manicured finger down the page. "I'm afraid I don't see any reservation under that name." Maya's stomach tightened. She had made the reservation 3 weeks ago, confirming it twice. "Could you check again? It should be there. Chen, CHEN for one person, 7:30. Bernard made a show of looking again, his movements deliberately slow. "As I said, there's nothing here." He glanced past her shoulder toward the entrance. "Perhaps you have the wrong restaurant. There are several establishments on this street more, suited to younger patrons." The dismissal in his tone was crystal clear. Maya felt heat rising to her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm certain this is correct. I received a confirmation email." "Miss," Bernard interrupted, his smile not reaching his eyes, "Le Chateau Noir requires reservations made at least 2 months in advance. We're one of the most sought-after dining experiences in the city. I'm not sure how you obtained what you believe to be a reservation, but I can assure you we are fully booked tonight, and every night for the foreseeable future." A woman in a fur stole and diamonds glided past Maya, and Bernard's demeanor transformed instantly. "Mrs. Vanderbilt, how wonderful to see you again. Your usual table is ready." Maya stood frozen as Bernard personally escorted the older woman into the dining room, leaving Maya alone by the host's stand. When he returned, his expression had hardened. "I really must insist that you leave," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're dripping water all over our floors, and we have actual guests arriving." "I am an actual guest," Maya protested, pulling out her phone. "Look, here's my confirmation email." Bernard didn't even glance at the screen. "Those can be easily faked. Listen, I don't know what you're trying to pull here, but this is a serious establishment. We cater to a certain clientele, people who understand fine dining, who can appreciate and afford what we offer." His eyes swept over her again. "This really isn't the place for someone like you." The words hung in the air like a slap. Maya felt the eyes of nearby diners turning toward them, watching the scene unfold. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her phone. "Someone like me," she repeated quietly. "And what exactly does that mean?" Bernard's nostrils flared. "Don't make me call security. You're too young to understand what we offer here. This isn't some trendy bistro where you and your friends take photos for social media. This is haute cuisine, a culinary institution with 70 years of history. Now please." "Is there a problem here?" Both Maya and Bernard turned to see a tall man in chef's whites approaching from the kitchen. He had silver hair swept back from his face, deep-set eyes, and the kind of presence that commanded attention. This was Chef Henry Beaumont, Le Chateau Noir's head chef and owner, a culinary legend with 3 Michelin stars to his name. Bernard straightened immediately. "No problem at all, chef. Just a small misunderstanding. This young woman claims to have a reservation, but your system must have made an error," Maya finished for him, meeting Chef Beaumont's gaze directly. "I made a reservation 3 weeks ago. I have the confirmation. But apparently I'm not the right type of guest for this establishment." Chef Beaumont's eyes narrowed slightly. "Show me the confirmation." Maya handed over her phone and the chef studied it carefully. His expression remained neutral, but something shifted in his posture. He looked at Bernard. "There does appear to be a confirmation here." "Anyone can fake those," Bernard began. "Are you suggesting our confirmation system was compromised?" Chef Beaumont's voice was silk over steel. "Or are you suggesting this young woman is a fraudster who somehow obtained one of our official confirmations?" Bernard's face reddened. No, chef, I just meant, she's very young and we have standards." "Standards," the chef repeated, turning the word over. He looked at Maya with renewed interest. "Miss Chen, was it? I apologize for this confusion, however." He paused and Maya's heart sank. "I'm afraid Bernard is technically correct. We are fully booked this evening." Maya felt the disappointment wash over her, followed by a spark of anger. So even the legendary chef was going to side with his maître d's prejudice. But Chef Beaumont wasn't finished. "However, we do have one table available, my personal table which I keep reserved for special circumstances." His eyes locked with Maya's and she saw something there, a challenge, perhaps, or recognition. "If you would be willing to accept it, you're welcome to dine with us this evening. Bernard will take your coat and show you to your table immediately." The color drained from Bernard's face. "Chef, but that's your table, you said." "I know what I said." Chef Beaumont's tone left no room for argument. "Miss Chen will be dining at table 1 this evening. Please ensure she receives exemplary service. Do I make myself clear?" "Of course, chef." Bernard's jaw was clenched so tight Maya could see the muscle twitching. "Right this way, Miss Chen." As Maya followed Bernard into the dining room, she felt the weight of countless stares. Table 1, she quickly realized, was positioned in the center of the room, the most visible, most prestigious table in the restaurant. It was where celebrities sat, where proposals happened, where power deals were sealed over bone marrow and burgundy. Bernard pulled out her chair with barely concealed resentment. "Your server will be with you momentarily," he said through gritted teeth before disappearing. Maya settled into her seat, acutely aware of the whispers rippling through the room. She could almost hear their thoughts. Who is she? She looks so young. What is she doing at table 1? Is she someone's daughter? A server approached, a young woman with kind eyes who introduced herself as Claire. Unlike Bernard, she smiled genuinely. "Good evening, Miss Chen. May I offer you something to drink while you review the menu?" "Just water for now, thank you," Maya said, accepting the heavy leather menu. As Claire walked away, Maya overheard a conversation from the neighboring table, where 2 middle-aged men in expensive suits were leaning toward each other. "Completely inappropriate," one was saying. "This restaurant has standards. That girl looks like she just graduated college." "Probably some social media influencer," the other responded with a sneer. "Henry must be desperate for publicity. Next, they'll be letting anyone in off the street." Maya's fingers tightened on her menu, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd dealt with worse, much worse. Claire returned with water and began describing the evening specials with practiced elegance. Maya listened carefully, asking pointed questions about preparation methods, ingredient sourcing, and flavor profiles that made Claire's eyebrows rise slightly. "You're quite knowledgeable about cuisine," Claire observed with genuine interest. Maya smiled. "I appreciate good food." "Will you be starting with an appetizer this evening?" Before Maya could answer, a commotion arose from the entrance. A group of 4 was being seated, 2 couples in their 50s, dripping with wealth and self-importance. One of the women, wearing a dress that probably cost 5 figures, was speaking loudly enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Absolutely bizarre," she was saying. "Did you see that child sitting at table 1? Henry must be losing his mind. This place isn't what it used to be." Bernard himself was attending to them, his obsequious smile back in full force. "I apologize for any irregularities you may have noticed this evening, Mrs. Thornton. I assure you, it won't impact your dining experience." Mrs. Thornton sniffed. "It already has. The ambience is ruined when you let in anyone with a fake ID." Maya felt her face burning, but she forced herself to focus on her menu, selecting the 8-course tasting menu with wine pairings. When Claire took her order, the server gave her an apologetic look that suggested she'd heard the comments too. The meal began. The first course arrived, an amuse-bouche of oyster with champagne foam and caviar. Maya studied it carefully before tasting, noting the temperature, the presentation, the way the components were balanced. She pulled out her small leather notebook and made a brief note. At the next table, one of the suited men scoffed. "She's taking notes, probably for her Instagram." Maya ignored him, savoring the oyster. The brininess was perfect, the champagne foam light as air, but the caviar was slightly too salty, throwing off the balance. She made another note. The second course came, a delicate consommé with shaved truffle. Again, Maya examined it methodically before tasting. The clarity was excellent, the flavor rich and earthy, but the temperature was a fraction cooler than ideal. Another note. By the third course, seared foie gras with black cherry gastrique, Maya was aware that her table had become the center of attention. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, watching her take notes, observing her careful examination of each dish. "This is ridiculous," Mrs. Thornton announced from across the room, her voice cutting through the refined atmosphere. "Bernard, I want to speak to Chef Beaumont. This is unacceptable." Bernard hurried over to her table, his face a mask of concern. "Is something wrong with your meal, Mrs. Thornton?" "The meal is fine, it's her." Mrs. Thornton pointed directly at Maya. "I've been coming to this restaurant for 15 years. I have never seen such disrespect for the atmosphere. A child sitting at table 1 playing restaurant critic with her little notebook. It's insulting to those of us who actually understand fine dining." The restaurant had gone nearly silent. Even the kitchen sounds seemed to fade. Maya sat very still, her pen poised over her notebook, feeling 100 eyes boring into her. Bernard looked at Maya, then back at Mrs. Thornton. She could see the calculation in his eyes, side with the powerful regular customer or obey the chef's directive. I will speak with the chef immediately, Mrs. Thornton." "See that you do," Mrs. Thornton said imperiously. "I'm not paying $600 a plate to dine with someone who probably can't even distinguish foie gras from chicken liver." The insult hung in the air. Maya felt her composure cracking. She'd endured the stares, the whispers, the judgment, but this public humiliation was pushing her to her limit. Claire appeared at her side, her face stricken. "Miss Chen, I'm so sorry. Can I get you anything?" Maya managed a tight smile. "Just the next course, please." But before Claire could leave, Chef Beaumont emerged from the kitchen. The entire restaurant watched as he walked directly to Mrs. Thornton's table. "Mrs. Thornton," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I understand you have concerns about my guests." "Henry, thank goodness," Mrs. Thornton said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I was just telling Bernard that while we appreciate your innovative spirit, there are certain standards that must be maintained. That girl is clearly out of her depth here. She's taking notes like a food blogger. It's degrading to your establishment." Chef Beaumont was quiet for a long moment. "I see, and you believe you can determine who is out of their depth at a glance." "Well, obviously," Mrs. Thornton said with a laugh. "Look at her. She's barely old enough to drink. What could she possibly know about cuisine of this caliber? An interesting question, Chef Beaumont replied. He turned and walked to Maya's table. Miss Chen, would you mind if I sat with you for a moment? Maya nodded, her heart pounding. The chef settled into the chair across from her, and now the entire restaurant was riveted. May I see your notes? He asked quietly. Maya hesitated, then slid her notebook across the table. Chef Beaumont read through her observations, his expression unreadable. After a long moment, he looked up at her. The caviar was too salty, he said. Yes, Maya confirmed. And the consommé was served 3 degrees below optimal temperature. I estimated 2 degrees, but yes, essentially. A small smile played at the corners of Chef Beaumont's mouth. You have an exceptional palate, Miss Chen. How long have you been in the industry? Maya took a breath. This was the moment. 4 years as an inspector, 6 before that in various restaurants. The word inspector rippled through the dining room like an electric shock. Chef Beaumont's smile grew. Would you happen to work for the guide I'm thinking of? Maya met his eyes steadily. I work for Michelin, Chef Beaumont. I'm here conducting your annual evaluation. The silence that followed was absolute. Every fork had stopped midair. Every conversation had died. Mrs. Thornton's face had gone from red to white in the span of a heartbeat. Bernard, standing frozen by the entrance, looked like he might faint. Chef Beaumont leaned back in his chair, and to Maya's surprise, he laughed, a genuine, warm sound. I thought I recognized the way you were examining the dishes. We don't see many Michelin inspectors your age. I was the youngest person ever promoted to inspector, Maya said, her voice steady now. I completed Le Cordon Bleu at 19, worked under Chef Thomas Keller at the French Laundry, spent 2 years at 11 Madison Park, and was recruited by Michelin at 22. I've conducted over 300 restaurant evaluations across 4 countries. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every person who had judged her, dismissed her, insulted her. I've been coming to Le Chateau Noir in various capacities for the past 3 years, she continued. Always anonymously, as is protocol. Tonight was my final evaluation before submitting my report. The report that will determine whether this restaurant maintains its 3-star rating. Mrs. Thornton made a strangled sound. Maya turned to look at her directly. You asked what I know about cuisine of this caliber. The answer is, quite a lot. Enough to recognize that Chef Beaumont is one of the most talented chefs currently working in America. Enough to appreciate the technical precision and creative innovation of his menu. And enough to know that the front-of-house experience is as crucial to a restaurant's rating as the food itself. She stood and Chef Beaumont rose with her. The entire restaurant watched in breathless silence. Chef Beaumont, your food tonight was exceptional. The amuse-bouche showed remarkable restraint and balance. The foie gras was cooked to absolute perfection, crispy exterior, silky interior, exactly as it should be. Your wine pairings were inspired. The precision in your kitchen is extraordinary. A flicker of hope crossed the chef's face. However, Maya continued, and that hope dimmed. A Michelin-starred restaurant must deliver excellence in every aspect of the dining experience. That includes how guests are treated from the moment they walk through the door. She looked at Bernard, whose face had gone gray. I was dismissed, insulted, and nearly turned away despite having a valid reservation. Your maître d' judged me based on my age and appearance, assuming I couldn't possibly belong here or appreciate your cuisine. He called me a fraud, suggested I was trying to pull something, and made it clear that people like me weren't welcome. Bernard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Maya's gaze swept the room. Several guests made loud, disparaging comments about my presence throughout the evening. One guest, she looked at Mrs. Thornton, publicly questioned my intelligence and qualifications, demanding I be removed for supposedly not understanding fine dining. Mrs. Thornton had her hand over her mouth, her diamonds catching the light as she trembled. "The question now," Maya said, turning back to Chef Beaumont, "is whether these failures in hospitality and service reflect the values of this establishment, or whether they represent individuals acting contrary to the restaurant's standards." Chef Beaumont's expression was grave. "Miss Chen, I can assure you that what happened tonight is absolutely not reflective of Le Château Noir's values or my personal standards. This restaurant was built on the principle that exceptional food should be accessible to anyone who appreciates it, regardless of age, appearance, or background." He turned to face his dining room, his voice carrying to every corner. "I am horrified by what I've witnessed this evening. The prejudice, the judgment, the cruelty shown to a guest, to any guest, is inexcusable." Looking at Bernard, his voice hardened. "Bernard, you're dismissed, effective immediately. Collect your belongings and leave." Bernard's face crumbled. "Chef, please, I've been here 12 years. 12 years during which you've apparently forgotten the most basic principle of hospitality, treating every guest with respect and dignity. Leave. Now." Bernard stumbled toward the back, his world collapsing. Chef Beaumont then addressed Mrs. Thornton. "Mrs. Thornton, you've been a valued guest for many years, but tonight you publicly humiliated someone based purely on assumption and prejudice. You're no longer welcome at Le Château Noir. I'll have your account closed." "Henry, you can't be serious," she began, but the look on his face stopped her. "I am absolutely serious. Please leave." The Thorntons gathered their things in mortified silence and fled, along with two other couples who'd participated in the mockery. The restaurant felt suddenly larger, quieter. Chef Beaumont turned back to Maya, his eyes tired but sincere. "Miss Chen, I cannot apologize enough for how you were treated. You deserved better. Every guest deserves better. If you're willing, I would like to personally prepare the remainder of your meal, and I hope you'll allow me to show you what Le Château Noir is truly meant to be." Maya considered this. She could feel the weight of her notebook, the responsibility of her position. The rules for Michelin inspectors were clear. Evaluate what you experience, be objective, be fair. "Chef Beaumont," she said slowly, "my evaluation tonight was of the full dining experience. What happened happened, and I can't unhear or unsee it. That's part of my report." His shoulders sagged slightly. "However," Maya continued, "what happens next is also part of my report. How a restaurant responds to problems is as important as whether problems occur. If you're offering to show me what this establishment is meant to be, I'm willing to observe that as well." Hope flickered in his eyes again. "Thank you, please sit. Let me show you what we're truly capable of." What followed was extraordinary. Chef Beaumont returned to his kitchen, and Maya could hear him speaking to his staff, his voice firm but encouraging, demanding perfection, inspiring excellence. The fourth course arrived, a poached lobster with vanilla beurre blanc and microgreens. It was sublime, perfectly cooked, every flavor in harmony, plated like a work of art. Claire, who'd been kind to Maya from the beginning, served each course with genuine warmth and extensive knowledge about every ingredient, every technique. The remaining staff seemed to rally, understanding that something important was happening. The fifth course, duck breast with cherry sauce, crispy skin, tender meat, the sauce a perfect balance of sweet and tart. Maya made notes, but now there was little to criticize. Between courses, Chef Beaumont came out personally to explain his inspiration for each dish, to discuss technique and philosophy. Other guests watched this unprecedented attention, beginning to understand they were witnessing something significant. The sixth course, a cheese service with accompaniments that showed both tradition and innovation. The seventh, a palate cleanser of champagne sorbet with pomegranate. And finally, the eighth course, a deconstructed Black Forest cake that was simultaneously playful and sophisticated, with house-made cherry ice cream, dark chocolate soil, and kirsch-soaked cherry compote. As Maya took her last bite, savoring the complex interplay of flavors. Chef Beaumont sat down across from her once more. "The food is perfect," Maya said honestly. "Every course after the first three has been flawless. Your technical skill, your creativity, your ability to balance tradition with innovation, it's exceptional. You deserve your 3 stars based on the food alone." "But," he asked quietly, "but a Michelin 3-star rating represents more than just food. It represents a complete experience. An establishment where every detail is perfected, where guests are treated with universal respect, where the atmosphere matches the quality of the cuisine." She met his eyes. "What happened tonight with Bernard and those guests? That was a serious failure. It's the kind of thing that can cost stars." Chef Beaumont nodded slowly, pain evident in his face. "I understand." "However," Maya continued, "your response was immediate, decisive, and genuine. You didn't make excuses. You didn't minimize what happened. You took action, and you demonstrated that those behaviors don't represent your restaurant's true values. The food you prepared afterward, the service from your other staff, the care you took, that showed me what Le Chateau Noir is meant to be." She closed her notebook. "My report will include everything that happened tonight. The discrimination I faced, the assumptions made, the public humiliation. But it will also include your response, the excellence of your kitchen, and the clear commitment to your principles." "What does that mean for our rating?" he asked. Maya stood, gathering her things. "It means that the decision isn't mine alone. It goes to the review board with my full report and recommendation. They'll make the final determination." "And what will you recommend?" Maya paused, considering. "I'll recommend that Le Chateau Noir has the best food I've tasted this year, a chef who leads with both skill and integrity, and a front-of-house problem that has been addressed. I'll recommend that while serious issues occurred, the response was appropriate and genuine. Whether that's enough to maintain 3 stars," she shrugged slightly, "that's above my pay grade." Chef Beaumont stood as well, extending his hand. "Thank you, Miss Chen, for your fairness, your professionalism, and your willingness to see the full picture. Whatever the board decides, tonight has been a valuable lesson, one I won't forget." Maya shook his hand. "Neither will I." As she walked toward the exit, the remaining guests watched in silence. Some looked ashamed, others intrigued, all of them understanding they'd witnessed something they'd talk about for years. Claire caught up to her at the door with Maya's coat now dried and pressed. "Miss Chen, I just wanted to say thank you for being fair. Chef Beaumont is a good man and this is a good restaurant. What happened tonight wasn't right, but it's not who we really are." Maya smiled at her. "I know, it was clear in the way you treated me from the beginning. That matters too." As Maya stepped out into the night, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under streetlights. She felt the weight of the evening settling over her. This was why she'd fought so hard to become an inspector despite everyone telling her she was too young, too inexperienced, too different. Because the food world needed people who understood that excellence meant more than just what was on the plate. Her phone buzzed, a message from her supervisor. "How did Le Chateau Noir go?" Maya smiled and typed back, "It's going to be an interesting report. Call you tomorrow." 3 months later, Maya sat in a conference room at Michelin's New York office, surrounded by senior inspectors and reviewers. The board had made their decision about Le Chateau Noir. "The food scores are exceptional," the regional director was saying, reviewing Maya's report. "Chef Beaumont's cuisine continues to represent the pinnacle of fine dining. His technical execution is flawless, his creativity is boundless, and his consistency across multiple visits has been remarkable." "But the service incident," another board member interjected. "Was addressed immediately and thoroughly," Maya countered. "Chef Beaumont demonstrated leadership, integrity, and a commitment to his principles. He didn't wait for my report. He took action in the moment because it was right." "The question," the regional director said, "is whether one bad night should cost them their stars." With respect, Maya said, it wasn't a bad night. It was a revealing night. It showed both a problem and the character to fix it. In my follow-up visits, she'd returned twice anonymously. The front-of-house service was impeccable. They hired a new maître d' who exemplifies hospitality. Every guest I observed was treated with warmth and respect, regardless of age or appearance. Chef Beaumont didn't just fire Bernard. He used the incident to reinforce his values throughout his entire staff. The board members conferred quietly. Finally, the regional director looked up. Very well. Le Chateau Noir will maintain its 3-star rating, with a note of commendation for Chef Beaumont's leadership and commitment to excellence in all aspects of the dining experience. Maya felt relief wash over her. It was the right decision. However, the director continued with a small smile, this report has raised some interesting questions about our evaluation process. Miss Chen, your handling of an extremely difficult situation was exemplary. Your fairness, your professionalism, and your insightful analysis reflect the highest standards of our organization. Maya felt her cheeks warm with the praise. Which is why we're promoting you to senior inspector, effective immediately. You'll be training our new recruits and leading evaluations of our most prestigious establishments. Maya's eyes widened. I thank you, I'm honored. You've earned it, the director said. And you've taught us all something valuable. Excellence isn't about fitting a preconceived image. It's about skill, knowledge, integrity, and the courage to maintain standards even when it's difficult. That evening, Maya returned to Le Chateau Noir, this time as herself, with a reservation under her real name and her position disclosed. Chef Beaumont himself greeted her at the door, his face lighting up when he saw her. Miss Chen, or should I say Senior Inspector Chen, I heard about your promotion, congratulations. How did you? The restaurant industry is a small world, he said with a grin. News travels fast, especially good news. Please come in. I have something special planned for tonight. He led her not to table one, but to a private dining room she hadn't known existed. Inside, a small group was waiting, Claire and several other staff members who'd served her that fateful night. We wanted to thank you, Chef Beaumont said. That night, as difficult as it was, became a turning point for us. We've implemented new training programs, new hearing practices, and a renewed commitment to treating every guest as special. You held up a mirror and showed us where we were failing our own principles. And we wanted you to know, Claire added, that it mattered. Having someone who looked different, who didn't fit the expected image, come in and show everyone what true expertise looks like. It changed things. Not just here, but in how we all think about our industry. Maya felt emotion tightening her throat. I was just doing my job. No, Chef Beaumont said gently. You were changing the culture. One evaluation, one honest report, one moment of courage at a time. That's how progress happens. They shared a meal together that night. No evaluations, no notes, just people who loved food sharing in the joy of it. The dishes were extraordinary. The conversation was warm. And for the first time since that rainy night 3 months ago, Maya felt truly welcomed at Le Chateau Noir. As she left that evening, full of excellent food and good conversation, Maya pulled out her personal journal, different from her work notebook. She wrote, Today I learned that being judged for being too young isn't about age. It's about people being unable to see past their assumptions. The greatest gift we can give others is to see them clearly, to judge them by their knowledge and character rather than appearances. And sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is simply be ourselves, excellently, until the world has no choice but to take notice. Maya closed her journal and stepped out into the New York night. Tomorrow she would begin training new inspectors, teaching them not just about food, but about fairness, about integrity, about seeing beyond surfaces. But tonight, she was just a young woman who loved food, who'd fought for her place in a world that tried to exclude her, and who'd won not by compromising, but by being undeniably excellent. The city lights glittered around her like stars, and Maya smiled. This was just the beginning. 6 months later, Le Château Noir received a profile in the New York Times. The article discussed Chef Beaumont's renewed commitment to inclusive excellence and how one night had transformed his approach to hospitality. It mentioned an unnamed young inspector whose experience had become a catalyst for change. Maya read it over her morning coffee, in her small apartment filled with cookbooks and Michelin guides. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues congratulating her on another successful evaluation. But the message that made her smile was from Chef Beaumont. "Thank you for holding us accountable. The best critics are the ones who make us better. Come dine with us again soon. You'll always have a table here, and not because you're an inspector, but because you're exactly the kind of guest we aspire to serve." Maya set down her phone and looked at her reflection in the window. She still looked young. She probably always would. But now, when she walked into restaurants, she walked with the confidence of someone who knew that expertise, knowledge, and integrity were ageless. And that was worth more than any amount of stars.